Good morning, everybody, and welcome to PSG of Mercer County. In addition to good morning, happy Aloha Friday, something that I just continue to enjoy doing, celebrating Aloha Friday. You are all welcome to do so as well. And so I always wear my Hawaiian shirt, so any of you visiting us for the first time, no need to wipe your glasses clean. It is me, not you, that is wearing a floral shirt. And so today I wore one of my fun ones, and well, I think they're all fun ones. Matter of fact, I even just ordered one on JCPenney. I have to go to the store and pick it up one day this week, so I will go do that. I do have a very large collection of Hawaiian shirts. And in addition to being Happy Aloha Friday, today is National Pierogi Day. So if you want to celebrate or consume any of those delicious Polish dumplings, you are certainly welcome to do so. Today is National Pierogi Day, and maybe a little bit extra special. And I'm sure everybody has their favorite style and flavorings of pierogies. Go enjoy that today. Nothing more special than just celebrating National Pierogi Day. PSG of Mercer County, the professional service group of Mercer County, we are a group that is here for you. Anybody that is in any kind of job search, and it doesn't really matter why. It could be your own organization. The one that you just left had their own reorganization that impacted you. That happened to me twice over the years. Or you're taking your own career into your own hands. With the job market having opened up quite a bit over the past year, there are people making a decision now to change jobs. Maybe you've done that. And there are certainly people that needed to take personal time at home, maybe to take care of a loved one or other personal situation. And now that that's beyond you, you are ready to get back into the job market. And so we are here to provide information, support, especially a little bit of guidance to help you be more efficient and effective in your own job search. Unfortunately, we cannot find you jobs. That's not what our mission is, but we are looking to make you yourselves more efficient and effective in your own job search. We have a bunch of resources to do that. One is we do have our weekly meeting. In case you're not aware of it, we meet every Friday morning at 10 o'clock. You certainly know we meet today at 10 o'clock, so we do meet every Friday morning at 10 o'clock. We skip very few Fridays. Black Friday, we typically skip. The week between Christmas and New Year's, we may skip. So only a couple, but probably about 47 or 8 weeks a year, we hold our weekly meeting. And you are always welcome. Meetings are always free to attend, even when we were meeting in person, and we'll meet in person again. Meetings will, as far as I'm concerned, continue to remain free, open to everyone. So you've heard of for-profit organizations, you've heard of not-for-profit organizations. PSG of Mercer County is a not-for-income organization. We take no money, and we are proud to do so. We're just here to help. We also have our LinkedIn group. Hopefully, as a job seeker, you are all on LinkedIn, and we do have a LinkedIn group. It is called PSG of Mercer County. Just about everything we do online is called PSG of Mercer County. It's a little bit of a private group. It's not a hidden group. And by private, we mean when you go search the groups for PSG of Mercer County, the first thing we do is we put you in pending status. You press the join button, we put you in pending status. We don't accept new people right away. But what I do is I look at our emailing list and our recent attendance on these online meetings. That's why your names here are posted. And what we will do is we will just check to see, have you been here at least once before, whether in person, which was almost 2 years ago, and or virtually. The reason why is we're keeping out people that join groups for the sake of joining groups and are not really of the positive mind of participating and helping job seekers. And that's really the only reason why we do it. And so if I don't recognize you, I actually may send an email just asking, please tell me your interest and why you're joining the group, which meeting you attended helps me convinced that I should accept you into the group. Our group has almost 1,700 members, I think 1,694, I think that's the number right now. All of those people have at one time or another been to our in-person or virtual group, either as a member or as a presenter. Our presenters, of course, very welcome as well. And we allow contributions. It's a great idea to contribute. So if you have articles to share, job leads, Karen talked to us just a moment ago, an announcement she made about a local digital program computer program that may be available in the Trenton area, so expos and things. So all that kind of stuff we encourage you to contribute. You may have even gotten an email about a wonderful position that has nothing to do with you at all. Copy it out of the email, paste it into the LinkedIn group. Your activity in LinkedIn only enforces LinkedIn to consider you as an active member, so just do that every once in a while. So that's what we like to use our LinkedIn group for, another place for you to be active. In addition, we do have our website. It is called psgofmercercounty.org, psgofmercercounty.org. So those of you who've been on this meeting before know about it. Those of you visiting for the first time, it is more than just a landing page. It is more than just a business card. We have over 120 pages, web pages of content. We've tried to make this a very full and robust website and a full and robust resource for job seekers. One thing that you may see, there's a tab along the top. It's called Professional Development. And when you click on that, there are several options in our Professional Development tab. One is called e-learning. And if you click on the e-learning link, you go to the e-learning page, we now have links to 77 e-learning websites. So if you're wondering, how do I find online resources for education, you can click on our Professional Development tab on the top, and at the bottom, e-learning, and we have links to those websites. A lot of them are completely free. Some of them don't require a subscription, you just pay for the class, and some of them are a subscription. We didn't want to only post the free ones because we wanted to give everybody lots of options that are there. If you come across an e-learning website that's of interest, that may be of interest to members, we'll post it. So we did a lot of research, took a lot of pride in building that e-learning page. And when you go into a job interview, if you've been out for a while, and they ask you, what have you been doing for the last number of months since you've been out? Well, you can, of course, say, well, I've been hard at work job hunting, and I get it, right? That's truthful, and surely you've been diligent. But if you've also can say, or maybe your first answer is, I've been taking some online training or getting certifications or whatever. These may be the way to do that, and that's a great answer showing people that you're participating in your own career advancement. So we help you go down that path. In just a moment, Ed, I will introduce Ed, and Ed will share his screen. Just to let you know, Ed will not be sharing his slide deck with us directly. What he'll encourage you to do is contact him a little bit later or after the program, and he'll be happy to share the deck with you, but we are not posting the deck. But we will keep the video presentation and the chat and other information from this program that will be on our website shortly. For Q&A, we're going to use chat. If you're new to this program, in the upper right corner, there is a icon that looks like a little circle with a tab that's called a cartoon call out, and you click on that, and that's for chat. And when you chat, you can chat to individual people or to all of us, everyone. So when you ask your question, ask it of everyone. It gives everyone the opportunity to see your question. It also gives both Ed and I simultaneously the opportunity to see your question. If you send it to one person, everybody else misses it. I don't want to miss any of your questions. And the way we'll do it, just type the word question. You can use chat for lots of things, but type the word question. And the reason why is that's the digital equivalent of raising your hand. This platform does not have a raise the hand feature like LinkedIn does. I'm sorry, like Zoom does. So, and that way, when I see the word question, it stands out from all the other comments that people may be posting. When that happens, I will simply say to Ed, oh, excuse me, Ed, there's a question, and we will ask you to speak with Ed and unmute yourself and ask your question. If you would rather not open the mic yourself, type the word question, followed by the text of your question, and I will be happy to read it on your behalf out loud. And then Ed will address the question then. So we want to try and make this, even though it's a virtual presentation, as interactive as possible. And so I am just very pleased on behalf of PSG of Mercer County to welcome Ed Samuel. Ed Samuel is a career and life coach. He's an author and certified career assessment consultant team leader for his firm called Sam Nova. And the website is www.samnovainc.com, samnovainc.com. I'll post that in chat momentarily, and is based outside of Philadelphia. His team provides career assessments, resume writing, one-on-one career transition support with the emphasis on mid-senior level clients across multiple functional roles and industries. Ed specializes in growing and leveraging formal networks, targeted job searches, attaching the hidden job market, extensive interview preparation, landing a job after the age of 55 plus, and those looking to make a career pivot. Ed leads a team of 20 plus career assessment consultants across the United States. Ed leads the Career Professionals Network Forum, CPENG, C-P-E-N-G, in Newark, Delaware. Believers in Business Small Business Forum for Greater Kennett Square, Pennsylvania. Hosts Optimize Your Career program on Philly Radio 1180 on WFYL on Saturday mornings at 8 o'clock. And hosts a weekly live national program each Tuesday at 11 a.m. on career optimization as part of Thought Leadership Branding on Clubhouse, a new great platform. So PSG is very pleased to welcome and introduce you to Ed Samuel.
Thank you, David. So great to be here this morning. And for those of you who don't know, I'm originally from New Jersey and born in Princeton. So yeah, so it's great to be here. So yeah, let's get at it, and let's see if I can share my screen here, David.
There's a screen button at the bottom, and if you click that, you'll see a little window will open, and you'll want to share your whole screen or your whole desktop, not just a single application. It'll be easier that way.
Yep, I'm doing that now.
Yep, and I'll let you know as soon as I see it. And there's your PowerPoint. And just start the presentation, and we should be ready to go. Start from the beginning.
There we go.
Terrific. Yep.
All right, very good. So again, as David mentioned, if you have a question, go ahead and chat. Put it in chat, and we'll kind of just take it one step at a time. This talk about assessing your career at any stage is one that I've given quite a bit in the last 2 or 3 years. I think the last time, one of the first times I gave it was right at the beginning of 2021 for the FANG organization, the Greater New York City, and I've probably done it a dozen times since. So let's go into my story just a little bit. I think I mentioned I grew up in New Jersey, worked in many places, corporate America for 30 years, 6 years as a recruiter as well as a recruiting leader for a multi-billion-dollar firm. But I did hold in this period of time about 38 paid jobs. But there was a point in my career when I was finally let go in corporate America. I was a CFO in South Carolina that I wasn't sure what to do next, and I ended up doing an assessment, a career assessment, and gosh, I think I was 46, 47 at the time, and made a career pivot. And you could call it an encore career if you will, but that kind of led me on this journey of creating my own practice as a career coach. And I'm on LinkedIn, and I love what I do, and I'll be talking about, a lot more about a career assessment here shortly, but I do lead a team of 25 plus consultants across the US that do career assessments on a virtual basis. So for me and my story, there was a point in my life where something happened and I had to make a shift. So let's move on. So when we think about, I want to create a framework in terms of when to reassess your career. Now, everybody launches a career, right? We go to school, high school, and we launch this career. But then what happens is that things happen to us, and in a very unexpected way. And then it stops us, hey, what should I do? Never saw this coming. But then there's other times in our lives, in our careers, where we're going to make a proactive change. We know exactly what we're doing, and we know exactly what shift we want to make and why, and we make it. And what I like to say is that there's two different positions when it comes to reassessing your career. A defensive one is when something happens to you. You get tapped on the shoulder unexpectedly on a Friday. The next thing you know, you're unemployed on Monday. plant goes out of business, company goes out of business. There's lots of things that happen but yet we're reacting. That's more defensive oriented. And then of course, what I just mentioned is one that's more offensive. Now, this next slide is one that I shared for the first time at a very large university when I was asked to come in to talk to the alumni committee of their sports organization. And looks a little busy, but I'm going to kind of walk you through it because these are times in our lives where we may have to stop and say, hey, this is an opportunity to reassess. Now, if I start here in the middle where we launch our career, and hopefully always we're trying to optimize our career to get to what we might call a dream job, or we're going to renew to get back to that dream job. And if you go kind of if you look southwest here, we're going to kind of follow this circle, this diagram a bit. Economic downturn, COVID-19, it changed the landscape of America, of the world, but certainly in America. And COVID-19 had a lot of people out of work, out of their industry. And many of those people called us up. Ed, what do I do? Many people did not want to return to their industry. I mean by the droves. There's a time to reassess. Now, sometimes things happen, no fault of anyone's. You get sick, an accident, disability. I can't tell you the number of clients over the years that we've had where, hey, Ed, I've been out of work for 2 years taking care of my mom, my dad, my spouse. Now they're better. I got to get back to work. So these are times where, okay, now what should I do? Do I go back to what I was doing? Now, there are other times where you're with a company a while, but yet promises aren't being kept. Maybe you're with a company and it's feeling like I'm there a bit too long. In fact, the new generation of people out there right now are thinking that too long is 2.5 years, 4 years. Hey, I've been here way too long. Other people, it's still 20 years, right? But then something else happens in our careers, right? Merger, acquisition, reorganization. But certainly when your company gets acquired and you're in any kind of a shared services role where there's a potential of duplication, that's a red flag that should come up immediately. Is it time to reassess where I'm at and what I'm doing next? Because something might happen to you. Another case that happens a lot, in fact, I'll be talking about this topic again for the 3rd time on Clubhouse this coming Tuesday, 11 a.m., the toxic workplace. But it's more than just the toxic workplace. It's also everything's going great. Next thing you know, you get a bad boss or a hostile boss. And everything that was going fine is turned upside down. There's a great time to reassess your career because you may need to get out. You may need to do something different. If you follow this down a little bit, you might be a point in your career where you've hit a plateau, no growth. People come to me all the time. Hey, Ed, I'm working. I hit this plateau. You know what? They just brought in somebody above me. I'm not going anywhere, and I need help. What can I do to move my career forward? And many times they have to leave the company, right? There are people who retire. And I've talked to many people retire early at 60, 63. Then they come back to me and say, hey, Ed, you know what? I might live another 30 years. What do I do? Great time to reassess your career in terms of what this next stage looks like. This is the less fun one, right? The one on the right, far right, there are times when we make mistakes. Yep, and believe it or not, there are people that, call me as a career coach, Ed, I made a big mistake. I got fired. Should never have done it. I had a person get fired from a very well-known firm and they were the #1 performer for 10 years of all the stores, but they made one mistake, and it was an unforgivable one in the company's eyes. Boom, Ed, what do I do? And then there's harder ones, people coming out of the federal prison system that are really smart, but they made mistakes. How do they get back to work? How do they reassess their career? And then there's points where A lot of people will realize, you know what, I've worked for these companies, but I'm going to hang my own shingle. I want to do something myself. And when you hang your own shingle, you're either going to buy a business, you buy a franchise, start a consulting practice. I've helped countless people do that. But there was a time that they reassessed where they were at, and that was the direction they chose because they were ready for it. And then you have people, believe it or not, who kind of unretire. They've retired, and then, you know what, Ed, I've done enough sitting around or playing golf. You know what, I got to get back to the arena. Our last client who just hired us, as strange as it may sound, is 80 years old in DC. He and his wife are just amazing. They look like they're 60. As bright as a whip, a few health issues. They want to get back. He wants to start a consulting practice. So this slide is really meant to let everybody know, especially those people who are working, there are points that will occur where any one of these areas, it's happening to you, or you take the lead on it, and it's a great time to reassess what you might want to do next. Now, as a career coach, everyone who approaches us, we ask them the question, whether you're unemployed, whether you're working, whether you just got let go, whether you've been out of work for 2 years, whatever it is, what do you want to do next? And it could have been caused by any of those things on that previous slide. And I use the 3 to 5 second rule. It's actually, and I talk about this. I published a book called Optimize Your Resume in 2019. It's available on my website and Amazon. And one of the very first chapters, it has to do with what do you want to do next. And I use this 3 to 5 second rule, simply say, when I ask the question, if we get the 1,000, 2,000, we get the 4,000, 5,000, you haven't answered me, chances are you might be unsure, and you probably need to reassess where you're at and take a career assessment. Because in the end, we will never work with clients helping them with a resume unless we know where you're going, what makes sense for you to do next. We just can't do it because the resume needs to be it really needs to be focused on your new direction. And even if you're making a pivot in your career, that pivot needs to be called out on that resume. But sometimes you're not even sure where you're pivoting to. So what I want to do is I want to talk about 4 elements of a really solid career assessment, what it should look like. And whether you do a formal career assessment or you do it on your own, on a sheet of paper, this is kind of what I want you to be thinking about as you go through an assessment. 4 areas: a deep dive in your personality, who you are, your DNA, how you were put together is so critical. And then what are your interests? What do you like to do? What really turns you on? And then what skills do you have? Yep, and everybody has skills right up to, today, and those skills change. Values, so important. Values become even more important. I think they're important across, really at any age, but certainly when you get to 50, 55, 60, 65, 70, those values really kick in terms of how you're going to reassess or what you're going to do next. So we're going to dive into this now. David, any questions up to this point?
There's nothing that's come up just yet. So this is a good introduction into the program.
Okay, good. Just on to double check. So one of the things that we start off with when you start to focus on how to reassess your career and reassess what may make sense to do best is the whole area of personality. And the first question is, what are the strengths of your personality? And if I sat down with you and I said, what are the top 2 strengths of your personality? Do you know it? Do you know what they are? And we've done hundreds upon hundreds. We're approaching 650 assessments that we've done for people. I've done well over 200 myself. But what happens is in your personality, the top two strengths weighted on a really, with a really good assessment, it means everything in terms of what career you need to align to that's going to bring out the best in you. There are other factors, but these two become so important. Now, if you're not sure what 1 and 2 is, that's a problem all by itself. Maybe you know them, but they're not equal. I've done this too long. They're in rank order, and there's always a dominant one and a second one. And then we kind of focus on the next 4. I only put number 3 here, but the next 4, I almost call them the supporting cast. And many times when we think about our personality, you may be highly, highly extroverted. That's your number 1 personality trait. You just love people. You want to engage people. But you're in a job and a career where you're doing analytical work, and the only engagement you're doing is on weekends, on a volunteer basis or with the family. May not be such a good match. So if you're not sure what 1 and 2 is, then that's one of the reasons you need to do an assessment. It's so important, those first 2. And I'll come back to it again here shortly. Now, let's look at an example. The assessments, this is just one personality trait, which is, are you highly introverted? Are you highly extroverted? And we tend to look at assessments kind of in a subcategory level as well, saying not only do we want to know if you're introverted or extroverted, but we also want to know some other details about you. Are you kind of a distant person? Distance not bad. Distance is just that you're not going to go rah, rah, rah when an idea is mentioned. Distance is you're going to be more of a quiet thinker in the back of your mind, saying, okay, that makes sense, but I'm not going to take out the pom-pom, so to speak, right? Are you more reserved in a social situation? You go to a group meeting, even a Zoom meeting, let alone a group meeting. Are you going to be more the talkative one on a social basis? Or are you going to be more the quiet one? You're going to be waiting until somebody kind of pulls something out of you. Same thing for, you're going to be more quiet, or you tend to be the person who's going to be talking versus listening, right? So this is one of these traits where I met with someone early this morning. They're thinking about becoming a financial advisor. And I thought a lot of people make the shift to financial advisory. But what worries me a bit is that he tended to lean more to the left than to the right. And since I was a financial advisor for UBS for a number of years, and I worked with countless advisors, I know that if you're not extroverted as a financial advisor, if it's not part of your DNA, you run some real challenges because you have to be a bit of a social animal. You have to want to talk to a lot of people. And the more people you talk to, potentially some people might want to sit down with you. You have to present a lot. You have to go to a lot of social functions, and you better be a talker. But if I see that, hey, Ed, I'm really, somebody told me about the financial advisory role, this might be a red flag for me. Not to say you couldn't do it. My question is really, with that particular career focus in this example, is it going to truly bring out the very best in you? Not that you can't do it. Everybody can do just about everything to survive, right? But we're talking about what could you potentially do when you reassess your career to do something that's going to bring out the best of you. This is just one example of just one personality trait. We tend to look at 6 different areas. So hopefully that makes that's making sense. Now, here are some traits that, this is just, again, an example. Are you more directing? Are you more achievement-driven, leader-driven, or are you more adaptive? Are you more kind of the person that's going to play the team role? Or do you have to kind of be in charge most of the time? You more interacting, where again, are you more reserved? You more supportive, or hey, just the facts, dollars and cents, just the facts. You're not going to show a whole lot of emotion. You're not going to show a ton of compassion. Kind of the people side of you is not necessarily a dominant part of who you are. Are you conscientious or are you unconventional? Are you are you very unstructured in your thinking, or do you want to do things by the book? And again, these types of traits, these types of personality IDs, that when you look at this, there are careers that will lean towards much more supportive, compassionate careers versus dollars and cents. Lots of times, I hate to say it, I was once a CFO. You could be you have to be pretty objective in the role, right? And a lot of times I'll work with people who, hey, I really want to move into the finance arena, and they tend to have a pretty objective view of things. So personality traits, when you start to take a deep dive, what we're looking at, what you need to do is try to align different careers that are going to be supportive of these major traits of who you are. And again, the focus is always to bring out the best in you, leveraging the best of you. All right, let me continue.
Excuse me, Ed.
Yes.
Yep, so there's one question. It's from Greg. A peer recommended taking the VIA Institute on Character Survey to determine my personality strengths. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that one, but I certainly would look it up. Here's the thing: I've used and touched 22 different types of personality assessments. The ones that I like the most are the ones that are integrated versus a standalone personality assessment, because then the question is you'll have to do a standalone assessment of the things that you like, and a standalone assessment of your skills, and a standalone assessment of your values, and I want to see you now integrate them all together. So if that assessment is just a standalone of personality, when it comes to reassessing your career, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, as much as I'm probably more a fan of making sure that it's an integrated assessment tool. The 22 that I've seen, here's my only caution, because I know a lot of people. I get hit by different, probably once a month, by somebody who has another personality tool that they want me to use. The key to the personality tool, and I have, is making sure that it's statistically valid, and it's been validated by people that understand how to make sure the math works out, the statistics work out of that type of personality assessment, if you will. If it's not done, they can't back it up with hard numbers in some type of technical manual, then I would just be careful with that type of assessment. On my team, I have 5 PhDs. Every one of them, before they joined my team, looking at the assessment we use, they wanted to see the technical guide to make sure that it was statistically valid, and it is, and it stands up to all the major assessments. But anyway, long-winded answer though on me basically saying I'm not familiar with that particular one, David, but I'm just giving you some cautions. And if the person who raised the question, you send me an email with that particular assessment, I'll take a look at it and get back to you.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, one of the mistakes that's made a lot on personality is we get our values mixed up with our personality. And what I mean by that is when I sit down with someone and I say, well, what are your top 2 personality strengths? And you say to me, hey, I'm a really hard worker. And I say, nah, that's not part of your personality. It's really a value. Because you know what? An accountant is a hard worker, and so is a sales rep. hey, I have really high integrity. Well, again, accountant could have high integrity, a marketing rep could have high integrity. So you want to be really careful that you separate the two, because these examples that I'm putting here, 1 through 5 here, they can apply to everybody for every situation, for just about every career. What I want to know though is, are you really extroverted, right? And that might align you well to a sales role, to a financial advisory role, right? Maybe even to a some type of event planning role. And guess what? All of them, you'll be a hard worker, right? But that's where we have to be careful. Many times, the personality, by mixing these up, we end up then following a career based on what we think is our personality strengths, when in fact they're really our values, and we'll get ourselves in trouble. Now, I'm going to shift for a minute. I just hit on personality. Any final questions, David, on personality before I shift to interests?
There are no other ones posted at this time.
Okay, thank you. So here's the neat thing. If you're unemployed, I always tell everybody, hey, if you're unemployed, there's only about 33,000 jobs in the world that you can move into. All those jobs tend to fit nicely into these 5 career groups. Jobs about doing, helping, analyzing, influencing, expressing. I think and we'll take a look at this. And again, when we're asking our clients to do an assessment, when you're doing an assessment, we're trying to hone in on your interests and then what bucket makes the most sense for you to really dig into in terms of a career group. Now, these are examples. So if we talk to people and hey, I really like this whole arena of doing hands-on or doing something where it's either with your hands or you're actually walking somewhere. It's pretty cool. And some people say, hey, they they want to run a landscaping business. Some people, police officer. I had a person 2 years ago. I'm jumping ahead a bit, but I want to share this with you. They went to school to be in medicine, and 7 years in school in medicine, and they made a horrible mistake, a mistake in the field of medicine that you can never make. And their chance of them being licensed, slim to none. And as a result, they had to sit down and do an assessment and reassess where they're at. And what came out the other end was that they were more of a doer, and they ended up becoming a police officer, and in the state of Delaware. So that happens. Then there's jobs around helping. These are your nurses, your hospitality, your servers, right? Analyzing. This is where we get back into the CFOs, the IT roles, engineers. Really strong on that. This career focus of analyzing. Influencing, sales, manager, lawyer, pastor, coaches, right? Counselors, psychologists. These are influencing type of roles. And then you have the expressing roles. Work with a lot of people who are graphic, they make a shift to become graphic artists. And these are journalists, actors, writers. So these careers can fall into these buckets. And I would want to understand, if I'm working with anybody here on this call, where do your interests lie? Now, once we understand where your interests lie, I look for 4 things specifically, and you should look for 4 things. If you're looking for something specifically to make a shift to a new career, do you like this new career overall? If it's moving into finance, do you like it overall across the board? Do you like doing the work, the actual doing of the work? You can like something overall, but you know what? I don't want to really get into that kind of level of detail. Do you like the occupations within that career family? hey, here are the 6 different types of jobs. Yeah, I could see myself in those jobs. But then lots of times what will happen, especially when we get into our 40s, mid 40s, 50s, 55, 60, are we willing to go back and study and learn it? And for some of us, we may want to make a career shift, but let's just, if you're 50 and you want to become a teacher, and you might have to go back to school to get a teaching certificate, right? If you're in marketing and yet you really needed to be an engineer, well, you may have to go back to school to get your engineering degree. A lot of people that I know, believe it or not, 35, they decided to pursue a law degree. Guess what? Or law to reassess their career, and they had to go back to law school. But as a general rule, you just can't say, well, hey, I like, this notion of, a legal career. You have to kind of break it down and really ask yourself some questions around, how well do you like it? And do you like it enough to go back to school? Do you like the occupations? Do you like actually doing the work? And then kind of overall, is this something that makes a lot of sense? Now, one of the things I wanted to just point out on this slide is that, again, I'm trying to match up. Your goal is to match up some of your greatest strengths to what you like. So if you like the idea of being a lawyer, okay, how does that match up to that personality, your top 2 personality traits? Lawyers, there's lawyers that have to, if you want to be a trial lawyer, you better be able to be very, very verbal. If you're not verbal, you're gonna have a real problem. And sometimes I see this with the legal profession. People go into law, and then they don't last that long in a legal firm because the principals, the partners at the law firm, want these people to really, really be outspoken and engage, and really be the ones that are going to be in front of a judge or a courtroom. And come to find out, they love the legal field, but they're much more analytical in their approach. They're not outspoken, they're introverted. And so maybe they like the career of law, but then you have to kind of do a drill down specifically in the type of job in the law arena, and kind of go through this exercise of 1 to 4 and then match it back up to your personality. Now, next, we have to take, yeah.
Yep, so we do have a couple of questions that have come in on this topic.
Sure.
The first is from Edith. What is the difference between a value and personality?
Should I go back to that slide? So, a lot of people want to put them in a bucket and throw them around and then dump them out and say, well, it's all the same. And I don't believe it's the same. The best way I can describe it is that your personality is a list of things that make you very, very unique. And those things that are listed are the things that I mentioned earlier. Things that are you more directing, or you more adaptive, interacting versus reserved. When you get and these things are very, very unique to you, and they align very tightly to a career, or should align tightly to a career that makes sense. Values tend to be more universal, they apply to just about every career, every job, Edith. So where I think the best way to explain it would be, again, think of a value of it could apply to every single career, whether you're a hard worker, whether you have high integrity, whether you're money driven. It could apply to every single career, but yet a personality strength or a personality type may not. So some of it, I think, if you go through an assessment, you'll see the differentiation between the two maybe a little bit more clear. But that's the best way I can describe it right now.
Okay, thank you. And Matt has a question. What happens when your interests cross over between the 5 career groups?
That's a great question. Then what happens? That becomes more difficult because what'll end up happening is you'll end up having to do what are the pluses and minuses between two things. I have a person now who's thinking about continuing in the IT arena as a transformational, let's say, business consultant. Yet they're very, very hands-on, and they're thinking about, you know what, I played this role, but I've always wanted to do something where I could go outside and do work. And what ends up happening is that, wow, so here's a person who wants to potentially maybe start a landscaping business, but they've been doing IT transformational work. So they have these two parts of them that they love equally. What it'll boil down, David, is it's going to boil down to what are the pluses and minuses and what's going to bring out the very best of them. But we're also going to need to take a look at where values jump in, because values can be a tiebreaker when we start to get close between career interests. Probably one of the hardest people that we end up working with, and it could be some of you on the phone, is that when you have a really broad skill set and you have many, many interests. I'm actually working with a person from Princeton University right now who had graduated a few years back, has such tremendous interests, such tremendous capability. We have to work really hard at then honing it down into maybe 1 or 2 areas that make the most sense at this point in time, based on the pluses and minuses. And sometimes there's not one incredibly clear answer as much as what makes the most sense to do, but then you have to pick one. All right. Now let me move on to skills and abilities. That's another factor in all of this. Your personality could be incredibly clear in terms of you being extroverted. You might like an influencing role. That could be a really good thing. But yet you may have absolutely no analytical skill in you, no math or finance skill in you at all. And it could be your weakest skill set. Then we have to stop and we have to question, becoming a financial advisor, does that really make sense? Because financial advisors, as much as they have to be social, they also have to understand the finances. They also have to have some math skills, analytical skills. Because if that's your weakest area, then you have to stop and question, to making it, reassessing my career and moving to that type of direction, does that really make sense? Now, in other cases, your skills, it may be one of your top skills. And the example that I just gave, maybe, in this case, you're analyzing, your second greatest skill. Interpersonal is your number 1. This could be potentially a person that could fit well into that financial advisory example. So what you have to be able to do is take a deep dive on your skills and be true to yourself, both from a soft skill perspective as well as a technical perspective, to make sure that based on your skill set, doing an assessment, do I have the skills? If you don't have the skills, can you go to school to get them? And do you want to go to school to get them? And if the answer is yes, you can still make the shift. You could still reassess your career and shift somewhere where you need to go. If you're not willing to make the investment to get that skill, then you have to then stop and rethink moving in that career direction. So this area of skills, you do want to rank them. You want to list as many as you can think of that you're good at, soft, technical, and then you have to ask yourself, how do they align to what I want to do? I had a person fairly recently who was with the Texas Rangers, and he kept on going up and down, and basically he finally said, he was from Pittsburgh, and he met with me and he said, hey Ed, I can't do, I'm not made, even though I'm good, I'm not good enough to be in the pro. I can't stay up, and no matter what I do, I don't have the skill level that it takes to be that pro baseball player, the big league player. What else can I do in my life and my career? So some of the skills could be like that, as dramatic as that, and some skills could be, I don't work well with people. It's not my strength. So skills become such an important part of your exercise as you're thinking through how to go about reassessing what to do next. Now,
excuse me, Ed.
Sure.
Actually, is a question along kind of that same point you just made. This is a question from Alex. I like playing the trombone, but I need a job that pays for my bills. Where do I compromise?
Well, you know what? I'm going to get at this in this next slide, because what happens many times, I had a person years ago, love people, compassionate. I mean, this was their top personality trait. And their interest was really on helping people, and really wanted to be a social worker. That was aligning really well. Then they actually had the skills, and they actually went to do some school work and got their baseline license to be a social worker. Everything's lining up. But then what happened, we came to her values. Her number one value was high income. It was like time out, stop, high income. What's high income? Well, Ed, I want to make $100,000, I mean, in the next 3-4 years. And I said, well, if that's your value, that's your driving value, we have a disconnect. We have to stop. And we actually had to turn the whole thing upside down. And she had to walk away from this whole journey of a social worker, and really never correlated this drive, this value of money, and what that money meant to her versus this occupation that she thought she wanted to pursue. So that's where, Alex has a great question. You have to stop, and you have to then get these things to align. Now, sometimes the answer is not as clean as stop. She could have pursued the social worker path, knowing that she might make $40,000 for quite some time, and have to get a second job to help close that gap, right? So sometimes it's not an either or, it could be an and. But those are questions, and I think when I get into this next slide here, it will further delineate. So values, we like to look at values in 3 ways. I encourage you to look at values in 3 ways. The first one is, if you were to go and shift your career, reassess and think about another career, what kind of work environment do you want to be in now? And an example would, hey Ed, I want an environment where teamwork is really, really evident. And you know what? Aesthetics is important to me. I like something clean. I like something orderly. I like how it looks and feels. That's really important to me. I don't want to go to a building and get paid a lot of money, and the aesthetics just be horrible. And I don't want to go work for a place where teamwork is non-existent. So that becomes, and there are some careers, by the way, that where aesthetics is not the number one arena that they play in. Teamwork is something you have to do a little bit more due diligence on, but and I would even argue there are some careers where if that career, let's say a sales role in an industry where you're just going to be a lone ranger all the time, and you're not even working with the team, that may not be the career you want to pursue, because in your values, you want to work in more of a team environment. Now, the second area we look at is, if I put everything into this job, 50, 60 hours into this effort, what am I going to get out of it that's important to me? Now, in this example, I'm just saying high income is really important to me. And this is, again, where we have to reconcile, right? What's high income mean to you? And this new career that you're going to pursue, does that match up well? And for some people, learning is everything. They're vivacious learners. They don't want to go to a place where it's so conventional, so tied, that nothing has changed for 5 years, and change is very, very slow, and it's not going to be a learning experience at all. They're not going to learn anything out of it. It's just going to be same old, same old. Again, may not be the right career focus if you do something that doesn't have that learning environment. But work outcome is very important. And then, kind of like, you know, a trump card on is life values. Overall, if we step back and we look at this career change we want to make, and we're reassessing things, you know, there's a pecking order that you don't want to violate. Now, in this example, I said family and faith. We kind of cover 8 different areas, but if family is really, really important to you, you may not want to take this career in a job where you're not going to see your family a lot. And again, it's all relative, because some people say, hey, I'm okay with being away 5 days a week and seeing my family on the weekend. Other people say, hey, I have 2 little kids at home. Family's number one, and I'm going to take a career in a job where that's not going to get violated under any circumstance. And there are some people where their faith is going to lead into a company where faith is part of what the company is about, or they're going to rally around maybe a product that touches people's lives where faith is evident. These values are all, they all need to be integrated with our decisions when we reassess our career. Many times when we don't do this, we're off in the next job and there's a knot in our stomach. We go to a career or a job within a career and there's a knot in our stomach because we haven't thought these things through. Now, as I start to summarize here, what I'm always looking for, and what I'm begging you to look for, if you want to stop, reassess your career, whether it's defensive or whether it's proactive, just look at these 4 pieces carefully. Look at your personality, and I talked about those big 2. Look at those interests. Where do you really have interest? What skills do you have? Take a deep dive, and how do they align to values? And we're trying to integrate those 4 things together. So when you make a conscious decision to go do something, you're really looking at that personality and the top 2 especially. Does that fit? What would I love to do? Where does that fit? Do I have the skills to do it? And how does that align to my values? And I always say, when we get done with a client, we usually do a 2-hour consultation with clients. And at the end of the 2 hours, we have this flip chart. We have this all laid out. Now, if you wanted to become an instructional designer, great. Let's make this shift. And you know what? That aligns really well. You were doing this, and this is where you want to go. That makes a lot of sense. Sometimes you do these assessments and you find out, hey, I've been in marketing, 20 years, and what else is there? Because I'm not sure what I want to do. And we go through it and we find out that, you know what? Marketing is still a good choice to be in. You align perfectly to what you've been doing. But here are maybe a couple of other choices that you have. And yet you're going to hear situation after situation where, you know what, Ed, I've been doing something for 10 years. I don't even like it. Or it shifted to a point where I don't like it at all now. What else can I do? And this is, again, where your eyes are wide open in terms of what you want to do and how you want to do it. One of the things that you really want a consultant to do, if you ever use a consultant to do this, is be very outspoken as to what you shouldn't be doing. I always say to people, you won't, I won't hold back on that, because there are some people say, well, I think I should do this, and we go through this exercise of aligning these 4 things, and And I say, if you become a financial advisor, I'm going to give you a heads up. You're in for a world of hurt potentially. And here's why. Yeah, I still want to do it, Ed. That's okay, do it. But don't come to me a year or two, say, hey, you hate your job, right? Now, I want to go back to the framework. Once you launch your career, things are going to happen to you. And for a lot of people in this call, if you're in job transition, it already happened to you in some way. Or you might be working. Right now, 75%, 77% of all our clients across the US are working. They're not unemployed, they're working. And they want to get to a better place. And many of them are also reassessing what they want to do next. And it may not be what they're currently doing. In some cases, it is. And then your position is whether you want to take offensive action then. But certainly, if it's already happened to you, then now's the time to reassess. But it's more of a defensive play, but it's still a really solid play. I'm going to close with some success stories. Actually, they're all success stories because people stopped, something happened to them, and they reassessed. 7 years in entertainment, 9 months in a job search. They sat down with us, we did an assessment. Now they became a recruiter and just killing it. And I mean killing it. And in fact, they just left the recruiting firm to another firm and now is a higher level and loving it, right? But up to that point, they thought they were going to be in entertainment, and that was going to be their career path. Here's another person. This was a case where a lot of times people, if you're in a career and you want to do one of these assessments, I just want to reassess. I had a Fortune 500 CFO meet with me a few years back, and he said, "Hey Ed, I love what I do. I'm a CFO for a Fortune 500 firm, and a great guy. And I want to do one of these assessments because I just want to make sure that my next 20 years, I'm not missing anything and I'm on this right path." So a lot of times you do an assessment just to validate that everything you're doing makes sense. And I gave him a couple other choices. He explored it and he came back to me. He goes, "Ed, I still want to be a CFO. It's meant to be. But when you did the assessment and I took a deeper look at who I am, my skills, my interests, and most importantly, my values, it's guiding me in terms of what that next company should look like, especially the value piece." Here's another person, Senior VP of Strategy. If I told you the name of the company, you know it in a blink. He reassessed. He walked away from corporate America as a VP of Strategy, making a lot of money to buy a franchise in South Carolina, painting franchise. You know nothing about painting, but having a great time. And he's dealing with what you would call stress, but it's clean stress. It's not that corporate dirty stress that we've all dealt with and continue to deal with at one level, but it's clean stress. I've had countless pastors come to me of churches, and I don't know why, but they come to me, and two of them became financial advisors. One of them nationally ranked now, right? And they thought their life was to be a pastor their whole life, and really wasn't, because it really wasn't bringing out the best of them. Here's a person in Upper New York, near Connecticut, New York. They were the senior manager of a shredding business. They just did an assessment. Now they own a tree franchise, a tree service franchise. Pretty cool. Another person raised funds for universities, tens and tens of millions, just an outstanding individual. She was just a dynamo, but we did an assessment, and what came out the other end, she loves kids. That's part of who she is. She ended up starting an early childcare franchise. And I'm not pushing franchise specifically as much as it's showing you when you do an assessment, you could stay the course, you can make a little change, you could start something differently. And the one I just mentioned to you earlier was the person who had to leave healthcare because they made a mistake. But here's the thing. when you're reassessing, or if you're unemployed and you're reassessing your career and you're kind of lining things up, the reason you want to look at your interests is because in his particular case, he loved in terms of his interests, he loved dogs, and he also liked doing. And when we matched it up, he said, well, you can become a police officer, but why don't you become a canine police officer because you like dogs? It's certainly a far cry from becoming a doctor, right? But now it's bringing out the best of him because the career change that he made, hey, Ed, if I'm going to shift my career, if I'm going to stay in my career, why don't I go do something that I really like in addition to making this shift? So again, a way to be thinking it through. We tend to do career assessments. Ours tends to be 550 questions, 24-page report, 2-hour consultation. If you ever want information, you can certainly reach out to me. We could send you some information on it. But the larger issue, and for today's presentation, I don't care if you use ours, use somebody else's, or if you use your own, just make sure these are the elements that you're looking at if you're going to stop and reassess your career. Again, I published the book. If you'd like to grab that book, you can get it from my website. I will give you a $5 instant rebate if you order it from our website only. And I'll open it up for questions, for any remaining questions, David.
Well, thanks. Terrific, Ed. Yeah, folks, this is an opportunity to ask Ed about assessment or any of the slides that he talked about. So we'll just kind of wait a moment or two to ask the questions. If not, we will move on and summarize the meeting. So you can put your word question in chat. That's the digital equivalent of raising your hand, or type the word question followed by your question, and I will read it out loud on your behalf. So certainly feel free to enter or type a question. And thanks. There's no obligation at all for anyone, of course, to buy Ed's book, but it's nice. He's got a $5 discount. If you want, you can contact Ed. I did already also post Ed's contact information. Matter of fact, I will do it one more time. I posted it in chat. I will do it one more time, because if you want to reach out to Ed, you can do so with one of these ways, either email or his website or this phone number. Ed, I took the phone number that you posted in your LinkedIn group, so hopefully you won't get a personal call in the middle of the night.
That'd be great. Look, everybody, I've been helping people with their careers for quite some time. At minimum, I'd encourage you to connect with me on LinkedIn. I have 25,000 direct connections. That's one of the reasons people like to talk to me as a career coach, because I know a lot of people, and I've helped a lot of people in New Jersey, New York City in the last couple of years especially. But connect with me on LinkedIn at minimum, because my network might get you to a better place or to get you to a hiring manager. And if you go to my website, I'd encourage you to go there and then click on events. You're going to see where I'm speaking next. I'll be speaking next Tuesday on Clubhouse, but I'm speaking somewhere nationally or regionally just about every week. And right now it's filling like twice a week somewhere. So, and on Saturday mornings, if you want to listen to me on the radio, it's kind of my way of providing a pro bono information about careers. I think I have each one of my live radio programs are recorded. And I have some 50-some programs I can point you to, and the links are again on my website. So, and again, it's all free and it's a resource. And hopefully I've given everybody just a little more insight in terms of just ways to think about if you're going to stop and reassess your career. These are the elements that you need to be thinking about, and hopefully you've got some value. And if you want a copy of that deck, just shoot me an email, and I'm more than happy to respond to it.
Terrific. And as you've been summarizing, there have been a couple of questions. One is from Thomas, and you can decide if this is an offline question or not. What do you charge for your assessment service?
Yeah, it's a good question. I charge $550 for the assessment. That pays for the cost of the assessment, my prep time, 2 hours of my time, and then a follow-up discussion. Now, and if you say, hey, Ed, I can't afford that, then I would get somebody on my team to do it that can charge a little bit less. And I have some amazing people on my team. So I never want the cost to kind of be prohibitive in people doing an assessment. So I try to work with just about everybody, and so that's kind of a range.
Okay, terrific. And of course, anyone can reach out to Ed directly to get more specific information. Charlotte Ann has a question. Once you've done an assessment, what resources are available to help determine best fitting careers?
Yeah, that's a great question. So our particular assessment tool, when you finish the assessment, what will happen is you'll have some homework. We'll give you an extended report that will have some clickable links to it and resources. And what I encourage you to do is do some drill downs on these specific career areas and specific jobs to get a feel for how many people have advanced degrees, how many people don't have any degrees. Are these careers growing, flatlining, or declining in the next 10 years, as well as what that job description will typically look like, and what the salaries are in New Jersey, nationwide, and what the current job openings are. So we give people the ability to go do some drill downs to look at that type of information, so they have more data to make a conscious decision of what may make the most sense.
Okay, thank you. Kathy has a question. Sometimes how we perceive ourselves doesn't fully align with how others see us. How do you reconcile that when performing an assessment?
So here's the thing. One of the reasons our assessments is so amazing is 550 questions, and what people don't, and that's why the technical guide really is so important. I say to people, when you do an assessment, just answer it who you really are, and don't get hung up with if the question's asked, do you lean left, right? Some people get caught up with, I'm not that far over to the left. Bottom line is, if you lean to the left, pick something to the left and turn instinctively because it's who you are. Do not ever pick something based on who you think you should be or what your mom or dad thinks you should be. Just pick something where so part of it is, when you answer these assessments, go with your instincts first and be quick about it. That's been probably the best practice I've offered people. And then what comes out the other end is, when we look at these reports, they've been very, very, I can't think of any time they've been wrong. I mean, we're approaching, like I said, 650, 700 people. We have never had one person say, hey, this ain't me. The only time it's ever happened is when people just scored it in reverse. For some reason, they were scoring it in reverse, and then they had to go back and do it again, and then it became right. So that's my answer, David.
Okay, thank you. Alan has a question. Is your assessment homegrown, or do you use a standard one?
No, that's a great question. The assessment that we use, called Career Direct, it is by far the #1 assessment tool in the world. This is the very rare case of an assessment tool that was created, that started in South Africa, that ended up spreading globally, that became a tool of choice. And I'm talking about in the secular world, tool of choice, and then it came to the US. It's one of the few tools where the US wasn't the leading tool, and we pushed it out. This is coming to us secondary. So in the US today, we have 1,000 consultants. Just to understand the impact of this tool, we need 10,000 consultants. That's how fast this tool is growing just in the US, because it's not known in the US. Everybody knows Berkman. Everybody knows Hogan. I've used them all. Berkman is a great competitive tool. Comcast uses Berkman at their executive level, but even the Berkman consultants, some of who are good friends of mine, they'll tell you, we go toe-to-toe with personality, interest, skills, but Ed, you own us when it comes to values. We don't touch values. And a lot of times these assessments won't touch values because it gets pretty darn personal. Yep, it gets really personal. And Comcast wouldn't use our assessment because when it gets right down to it, we're going to say, is your number one value being close to home because your parents are ill? Yep, that's my number one value, but my company wants me to travel all the time. See, companies can't fix that. I can, as a career coach. We're going to fix that. We're going to get this right. So some don't want to touch values because it gets just too personal. So that would be my my answer, David.
Thank you. Thomas has a question. Does the service, which I guess the service you provide, does the service include restructuring a resume if necessary?
No. So what happens is this is typically standalone. Sometimes we'll incorporate it into something larger. Once we get done with that particular service, then you would talk to us about redoing your resume. We have a whole separate program, a whole bunch of things we package together, or it's just the resume is next and we're done, or it's LinkedIn and resume and we're done. So no, it would be separate. But I did want to share with you, just to give you an idea, this particular tool that we happen to use, it's the number one tool the Muslim nation uses. Just to give you an idea in terms of assessing careers, there's countries in South America that use these tools that make it mandatory that those 550 questions are answered by every single senior in high school in the entire country before they graduate. So when I talk about a tool having a global impact, this particular tool, that I just wanted to reinforce that with some examples, David. So I don't make the comment lightly.
Okay, thank you. And there's a question from John, and you can decide if this is on or off topic. What kind of questions should we be asking companies or hiring managers as we interview for new positions?
Yeah,
might need another hour-long presentation.
I was going to say, if you want me to come back and talk about, tough interview questions, or I do that, that's a whole separate talk that I give on multiple occasions, I think. But what I do talk about, tied to what this talk today, though, and I do encourage this for everyone, I do talk about something called authentic interviewing. And authentic interviewing is taking those strengths that I'm talking to you about this morning, about your personality, and coming up with some statements that really support the strengths of who you are. So here's an example. If you're incredibly extroverted, I love people, I love engaging people, it brings out the best in me, then tell the interviewer that. Because what you don't want to do is have that person hire you, not understand the greatest strength of your personality, and 6 months later, 3 months into the job, they're leveraging the opposite of that in you. In other words, they're not sending you anywhere to be social. They're putting you in a room, and you're going to be, talking to no one. So the best way to answer the question in the context of the time we have this morning is just focus on your strengths and make sure it's authentic and be very bold. And I always call out 3 of them so that I'd rather see you not get the job. I can't tell you how many companies, and some of these companies are on the best companies list in America to work for. They don't get this. They don't get it at all well. And what they end up doing is they hire people, and then 3 months in, it's this great company. We're all into teaming. We're all into all these things. And then they start to leverage the weakest part of who you are. And next thing you know, you're butting heads. The next thing you know, you're not as successful. And that's where it just drives me crazy. The interviewers have a responsibility to understand the best of who you are, to make sure that they hire you and leverage that, not just get a body to fill a seat. So, not that I don't feel strongly about this topic, David. So.
Yeah, and I appreciate, it's on the recording. You've said it publicly. I may hold you to it. You're happy to come back, and we'd love to have you come back. And if it's okay, we'll talk offline more. But thank you for that offer. Hopefully, it just wasn't a slip of the tongue, because I enjoyed this presentation.
No, I think there's probably 19 others that I give.
Okay.
I don't have a shortage of topics to talk about. So yeah, David, I'd love to come back. I thank everybody for the questions very much.
Thank you very much. We'll catch up in a week or so, have another conversation offline, and see how we can help each other further that way. But thank you so much. You know, I immediately thought of the quote, and there's actually two versions of them. But the value of career assessment, I thought of this quote: if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. And that quote is from the author Lewis Carroll, who's also the author of the Alice in Wonderland book. So yeah, if you're just not focused and if you're not paying attention, yeah, you're really not going to know where you wind up. There's a version of the quote from a philosopher, and some of you may have heard this version: if you don't know where you're going, you might wind up someplace else. And the philosopher is baseball legend Yogi Berra. So he had a lot of yogiisms, a lot of versions of popular quotes, and made them his own. And one thing I thought was interesting, you had slides earlier, part of your talk, the difference between being introverted and extroverted. And a lot of people who are introverted think they can't do certain things. They can't talk to anybody in a group of people, or they can't even reach out on a one-on-one. But, you know, I'm of the opinion that when you're an introvert, you're actually better suited for this than the extrovert. And I've got a good friend of mine who he'll talk to anybody anywhere all the time, and he's just all over the place. I think extroverts have a harder time being effective than introverts, because introverts really just want to target right away that conversation with the one person, talk about the topic of interest, not share a lot about themselves until they get to know each other, and really be focused. And that's perfect for when you're getting to know someone at the beginning. So I thought it was interesting how you highlighted that earlier. So very good points, and just my observations on that.
Yeah, David, that's a great observation. I will echo that. Many introverts do incredibly well in customer service roles.
Yep. So because a lot of that work is one-on-one, which is the way, and I'm a bit of an introvert, even though you see me here on these programs. I kind of have a version of myself when I do presentations, but yeah, I'm much more comfortable in a small person situation myself. So yep, make it work effectively. So thanks again to Ed. Just as we wrap up, want to let you know in a few minutes we will end the recorded portion of this program, but we'll keep the meeting room open for about half hour or so. Anyone who wants to hang around talk about anything of interest, and whether it's job seeker support or anything else, we'll just keep the meeting room open, like if we hang around the library for a little while at the end of the meeting. So that'll be in just a moment. But right now, I want to let you know next week we will be right back here virtually, and personal coach, life coach Ellen Wagner will be here. And actually, she's from Germany, so I guess she's Wagner, or Ellen Wagner, taking the lead, learning how to manage your inner voices. And so that's what she will be talking about, how to get control of those, the little devils and angels on your shoulders, I suppose, managing those inner voices. So that's next week, October 15th. The following week, October 22nd, Melanie Woods will be here. How recruiters use LinkedIn Recruiter. Recruiters don't use LinkedIn. They use another tool by LinkedIn called LinkedIn Recruiter. They use a different version of the tool than we would normally use. So she will talk about how recruiters use LinkedIn Recruiters. And Melanie is a new presenter to us. One nice silver lining about this COVID and pandemic stuff, she's from Houston. So she will be presenting to us. There's no way we would have been able to have Melanie visit us from Houston, fly up, present for an hour, and fly home. So we've had a lot of success that way. And thanks to everyone in our PSG group who's helped connect us with other presenters. Tomorrow morning, if you're interested, the Breakfast Club of New Jersey will meet, and they meet every second Saturday of the month. So that's tomorrow, October 9th, 8 o'clock in the morning. Another virtual presentation, Presence Intelligence by Lisa Magnocchi. So she will be giving that presentation. She did give that one to us several months ago, earlier in the year. A fun firecracker of a presenter. She always has an exciting presentation. So if you're not up at 8 o'clock in the morning, join us at 8 o'clock and she will wake you up. But it's a wonderful program about presence intelligence. Just go to the website, thebreakfastclubnj.com, thebreakfastclubnj.com, to get the connection info. New Jersey Job Seekers meets every Tuesday evening at 7:30 in the evening. And they are one of those more small group presentations that get a bit personal, a little bit different than these large group formats. So if you're interested, go to our website and you will find the meeting connection info there I'm sorry, not our website, in our LinkedIn group. Go to our LinkedIn group, you can get the connection info there. And some of our cousin organizations, PSG of Central New Jersey, just a little bit north of us here, psgcnj.biz, psgcnj.biz. Check out their website. They normally meet Mondays at 10:30 in the morning. I'm not sure if they've moved it to Tuesday because of Columbus Day or Founders Day, so do check their website. And also PSG of Morris County, psgmc.org. psgmc.org meets Wednesdays at 9:30 in the morning. So once again, thanks to Ed. Thanks for everyone who was able to join the call today. And so in the meantime, what I will do is turn off this recording in just a moment. And until we get to see you again next week or somewhere virtually, I'll simply say, bye, everybody.